Welcome to the Comic Binge. I am your host, Paul Herman. Today, we are doing the unorthodox or unusual, just pure movie review that's not directly tied to comic books. But you know what? I always bring it back to comics because if I ever do that, it's always going to come back to what I love, which is comics. So I'm excited to talk about Dune Part 2 and Dune comic books, but I'm not alone. Before I even bring those crazy kids on my show, and I say they're kids because they are kids, god damn it. Go subscribe, please, to the Comic Binge if you're watching. Hit the like button, do all that stupid stuff that helps me get in the algorithm to get me out there. I'm trying to get, more people into the comic books, and to get to do that, I need people to cooperate, select the like button, all that. And for those who are coming for the first time, welcome, thank you. And this is not typically what we do. This is strictly a comic book show. But every once in a while, I fidge when I want to. And we do this for fun, like this, what we're doing today. Which you have 7 people already watching. Hit the select like button, all that crap. But yes, today we're talking about Dune. Remember, go subscribe. So anyway, without further ado, I'm going to bring on the reg. Guys on the reg all the time. Mr. Baby. Nico, how we doing today, sir?
Dude, I'm great. Happy to talk Dune. How's everybody doing tonight?
Oh God,
I'm so glad people chose to Dune in.
Oh God, dude,
I'm full of them. I'm full.
Dude, I couldn't believe my comment to you, or I think I quote tweeted you. I said, Dune unto others as you would Dune yourself. And no one liked it. I was like, "This is effing genius." Like you of course were into it. It was effing genius. I don't say that about myself very often. I will toot my own horn. So
a lot of things you are genius, Paul. Please, I promise you.
You're very, very sweet. You're very, very sweet. I had to get you on the show because you are Mr. Dune, besides Mr. Baby, and you're a big Dune fan of the films like I am. So. Had to get you on, obviously. Wasn't guilt you on. It was going to guilt you at some point. So, last but not least, I have the elder statesman's son himself, Mr. Garrison. Mr. Garrison, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. I don't have any brilliant puns like Nico did, but excited to get this started.
Well, by the way, did I have a nickname for you? I think I did. What was it? I'm almost forgetting it now.
I go by many names.
Right.
A lot of people call me G-Man. I mean, whatever you want to call me.
I don't like G-Man. I'll just call you
kind of
Double G.
Yeah.
I like Double G. I think
Double G may have been it.
I think it was it. I like Double G better. All right.
Were you on the Flash show?
Yes.
Garrison?
He was.
You gave him a name on that show.
Yeah,
I think it was Double G.
Name on that show. I think it was Double. See, Zeddy, he's the king of the How You Doing, so I had to use it for Zeddy. Great Flash show.
That was great. I needed to get you on before that. Yeah, that was great. That was a good one.
Yeah.
A lot of Flash fans. Speaking of Flash and fans, a lot of people watching right now. Select the like button, y'all. I really appreciate everyone doing this. So, we did the Dune Part 1 review years ago with my buddy Chris, also on the Star Wars show with the Elder Statesman. He was on that show with me, and we kind of did the same thing. We kind of talked about Dune comic books, maybe some sci-fi recommendations for comics. So we'll talk about recommendations at the end for maybe for comic book stuff, but we'll talk about Dune comics first, then get in the review and get the hell out of here. So Dune is, for those who don't know, obviously is based on a novel by Frank Herbert, a very good novel. For those who don't know, I love the comic medium for many reasons. The main reason why is I don't have to visualize anything when I read a comic book. It's all there for me, right? And the crazy thing about, prose is that I can't do it. I can't read prose very well. My ADD brain is just not programmed to comprehend information when I do that. So comic books has always been like my forte into material reading and things like that. I've discovered my love of reading through comics, and thus the Comic Binge is born. Dune, I have to consume through audiobook. Always through audiobook for Dune. But I love the original book Dune. I know Frank Herbert has done a great job of creating a very vastly complicated world. I love the Lynch movie, warts and all. It's out of control, but I love that movie, and I've always loved that the world of Dune because of that. So, all that being said, I've always been a big Dune fan, and thank God for audiobooks. I wouldn't be here without it. So, before we dive into comics and stuff, we'll kind of do quickly, brief history of your history with Dune, Mr. Baby, because you've been here the most, and I gotta go him first. Get the Double G. I'm sorry, hit me up G. With Double G was sorry. Give me a brief history of Dune before we get into everything.
Yeah, from like the reading standpoint,
just everything. Just
cool.
Just your introduction to the world of Dune.
So I actually have to credit my friend Leo. He's probably, I don't know if he's watching or not. But Leo? He's the one when Villeneuve was attached to the project and they cast Chalamet. He told me it would be the next Star Wars. He told me it would be the next big thing. So read about it. And at that point, I was also because I think he signed on in like 2018. That's like when my really explosion of film happened, and I had just seen he just did Blade Runner 2049, which I thought was great. So I'm like, okay,
phenomenal film.
This guy's a great director. I had seen the masterpiece that is Arrival at that point. So I said, okay, well, this guy's easily becoming my favorite director. I'm going to check this thing out. So when it started getting cast, and I think around the time of the first trailer came out, he gave me the book to read, or he either gave me the book or he told me to go get the book. So I tried reading it, and I had a really hard time. I'm kind of like you, Paul, where like I could do prose sometimes, but what the three of us were talking about prior to hopping on is not that much detail. It was hard for me to visualize things in Dune. It was really hard for me to see what Frank Herbert was trying to create. So I decided to wait. I saw the first film. Then I'm like, loved the first film. I thought it was masterful. I thought it was incredible. And I saw the thing like 3 or 4 times in theaters, took a bunch of people to go see it, tried to get some people into the film. And then I delve back into the book, and now seeing it and seeing these characters and seeing the world, I was able to get through most of it. And then, Paul, I think it's right around the first couple times I did a show with you, you brought up Dune audiobook is the way to go. And that's how I finished it, is with an audiobook. I used the audiobook from basically where the first film ends, like that sort of part of the story.
Yeah,
is where I kind of took over. Is where I chose to take over. And then I since in prep for 2, close to it, I tried to go back and read it, and was able to get through a little bit of it. But then I'm like, well, now I know, I've listened already. And then that's it for reading. You've told me about the comics. I've wanted to do Dune Messiah, but I wanted to wait till I saw Part 2, even though there's some changes and everything, which we can talk about later. So that's really my history with everything, and I've already seen 2-3 times already. So I have a lot of jealous. A lot of fun. I got very lucky multiple times. I got very, very lucky, which I'll get into when we actually talk about the movie.
Like my wife, like, listen, I when I say this, I'm not begging for money. I'm not asking for anyone. I'm just going to be real. We're doing fine. But my wife came up to me and goes, you can't spend any money this week. I'm like, really? She's like, yeah. I'm like, I thought usually she says that. I'm like, I can maybe do a little bit. And I was like, well, I want to see Dune again. She's like, no, you're not doing anything. No spending money this week. We're broke as F. I was like, so I have to wait another effing week to see Dune. I'm like, ugh. I mean, listen, I'm not hurting for money, but it just sucks. I'm just like, it's like, woe is me, personal problem. So it's okay. I just don't want it to leave IMAX by next week, because I got to see it again like at least three times.
I don't think it's going to leave IMAX for a long time.
I think you're right. we'll get into that too as well. Actually, I think it's worth talking about. Double G Garrison, history of Dune, go.
Yeah, my Dune journey probably more begins with. I mean, I own the book. I've owned it since the first movie, a little bit before the first movie came up, but it really begins with Denis Villeneuve. I got into his films, Prisoners, in about 2014, I think a year after it came out.
See that? Yeah.
Prisoners is a great film. I watched Sicario. That comes out in 2015. I didn't watch Arrival until later, but I did go see. I was one of 3 people opening night in my city to see Blade Runner 2049. A fantastic
Word?
theatrical experience. It was me, my best friend, and one other random
man.
guy. And after the movie was over, which I thought was brilliant, and maybe
It's a
still
great
my best,
movie.
maybe still my favorite sci-fi film of all time personally. But
Might be,
the
yeah.
guy who is sitting in front of us turns back. The only other guy in the theater says, "That was weird, huh?" And I was like, "Oh no."
No! No!
tough.
You fool! No!
And the really sad thing is, I'm like, Dad, you gotta go see this thing because it's not going to be in theaters long. It's not doing well.
Oh no! Not
And
the other
he was
statesman.
on
No.
he was on vacation and he didn't have a chance to go see it in the big theaters, and it left premium large format theaters pretty quickly, and the rest is history. He watched it at home with
Hold on.
me one day.
Did the other statesman like it?
Oh yeah, he loved it. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
we're big Blade Runner fans and big 2049 fans over here.
Okay. I love Blade Runner, the original. I love both. I mean,
Yes.
I don't want to get. By the way, we should do a review of Blade Runner because there's plenty of Blade Runner comic books that we could talk about. So
Yeah.
put a pin in that, my friends.
Yeah.
So continue to do your story with Dune, my friend.
I mean, after he makes probably my favorite sci-fi movie of all time, I am locked in as soon as he's going to adapt another giant sci-fi, and it's Dune. There's prestige there in terms of the book world and how unfilmable, quote unquote, it is. But he's a visionary guy. I largely believed in what he could get done with this, and he's blown me away again with this film. I mean, part 2 is spectacular. It's fantastic. I need to watch it again. Like you.
Yeah, we suck. We haven't seen it yet. So you love part 1 then?
The funny thing is,
don't do this to me.
I cannot say this without. Oh, I might surprise you real quick. I cannot say this without rewatching it, but I might like part 1 better than part 2 right now. Still.
All right, you double G. We good, homie. We good. All right. Here we go. All right. Really quick. I'll do my quick rundown version. We'll talk about some comics, get in this damn review. I grew up with a weird history with Dune because it was like this weird sci-fi movie that I shouldn't watch as a kid. That when I was a kid, we had cable. We didn't have the internet, could watch anything we wanted to. So when things would come on, we'd like Saturday afternoon, we had no idea what the hell it was, and I'd see Dune on a weird a winter like right now, February Saturday at 5:00. I'd be like, what the hell is this? It's just weird stuff like that. Finally got to watch it when I was an adult, or a young adult, I should say. Really liked the world. Didn't get into it till I was until later. I've always liked it, and my wife and I, we on our honeymoon, we drove around and road trip. We listened to the audiobook, doing the audiobook for End Dune Messiah, and I loved it. But that was also the time when Star Wars was at peak TFA. We got married in 2014. Oh god.
Oh yeah.
So it's we're talking
peak Force Awakens there.
Yeah. So I was kind of all over the place, but I was really into Dune. The last couple of years, I've been drowning through tons and tons of the bastardized Dune books, if you could say that. I'll just leave it there for you Dune heads, if you know what I'm talking about. So I'll get into more of that in a second. So anyway, before we get into the movie, I want to talk about some Dune comic books because it is the comic binge. And I'm not one of those things where on the comic book channel, but I only talk about comics once a year. So I'm not doing that, SH. That's not my bag. So right now, if you want to get into comic books for Dune, there's a couple things. First of all, the things I'm going to recommend right off the bat, the Dune comic books by the adaptation of the actual book by Kevin J. Anderson and Brian Herbert, the son of Frank Herbert. These are by Abrams Publishing, and they're fantastic. They look great.
So is that the whole? Is that the whole first novel? Okay, no.
There are 3 volumes, right?
Yeah, there's 3. The third one just came out. So this is the first one, and then this is the second one. And then the third one, I haven't got the third one yet, but this is the art that you can see here. And it's fantastic. It is great paper quality. It is if you have a hard time reading the books or whatever, Audiobook is definitely the way to go, I would say. But these are really, I haven't read them all the way through, but I've looked through them a ton, and the art is fantastic. I really recommend checking these out. I'm planning on reading these eventually soon when I get the third one, read them all the way through. But because it takes 3 graphic novels to get one book of Dune, it's very telling, right? So of how much dense stuff you got in here. So
where does the second one leave off?
Well, let me find out.
Okay, for sure.
I don't know. It looks like no, you're good. Probably it's looking like after Paul, I think, talks to Landsrod. It's got him and Chaney and stuff like that. So I think it's like kind of close to how Dune ends, or probably like middle end of Dune 3 or Part 2, basically. Middle part. I'd say around that time. So, but the art is fantastic, and yeah, I've the little I've looked over this, it's definitely worth picking up for if you like comic books or you're into Dune but you don't want to read the book. This is definitely, and watch the movie. This is definitely a good way to go down. The other thing is here. I've got a bunch of these. So you've got Boom Studios has released a bunch of these House Atreides, House Harkonnen books. And if you guys are wondering what that is, I'll go into that here in a second. These are actually adaptations of the novels that were written by Kevin J. Anderson and Brian Herbert that are not exactly loved by the Dune community before the hardcore Dune community. This is also this one I told you to read. Nico, did you read this one at all?
No.
Okay,
but it's only two in physical
comics. Yeah, it's only 2 comics, which is very weird. So they're the double size comics, but very, very interesting. Really quickly, I'm just gonna say I've read the House Atreides, the House trilogy. It's interesting to say that. If you're looking for basically backstory of like Leto, Baron Harkonnen, all that stuff, like the origin of Duncan Idaho, Gurney Halleck, that's all in this stuff. That's all in here. You can listen to the audiobooks, but Boom Studios is putting out pretty solid comics. I'll be honest, I listen to all the audiobooks, not my favorite stories, but if you want to go and read comics, these aren't bad. They're just not my favorite stories overall. But I'm going to read the comics eventually, but I'm going to collect them all first. But art's good. And the story is, again, if you want to know backstory, yeah, it is. Listen, if you want to know more about the backstory, definitely the House Atreides, House Harkonnen, that's the books you want to do. What's interesting about these ones right here, these are basically some of the first Dune original comic books ever. These are not based on any adaptations. These are actual original stories for the comic book medium, only for the comic book medium, as far as I know. Because I know when Marvel had the adaptation for Dune, they only did the movie adaptation. That's all it was. It wasn't like original stuff. So if you're looking for original comic books, I believe that's House Harkonnen. Sorry, this is the blood. This is actually a good comic. I reread this today, and I was like, damn, this is actually a pretty good comic. It's a great example of the politics. It's a good, solid. The art is super solid and good. Again, when you're doing a comic book, it's not prose, guys, right? It is a very different animal, and they do. Kevin J. Anderson has a history of comic books and everything, and does a pretty good job. I recommend checking this out. This is definitely the comic I would get. This is probably maybe a little overpriced with this together, but Tales of Arrakeen, not bad. I forgot there's some things in this lore here that kind of introduces you to. I'm like, I forgot about that. I'm like, oh yeah, it's weird. So just throwing it out there. Good lore books. If you want original comics, Tales of Arrakeen. There's also another one that I forgot to put on here. That is right here. Sorry. I think it's the Waters of I can't read their last word. Sorry. This book is a graphic novel as well. Also original comics, I believe. So there are original Dune comics out there to get. Lots of Dune comics in general right now to go pick up. Go check them out. House of Conan, these covers are nice. I ain't gonna lie. The covers
they're
are great.
gnarly covers.
They're cool. So go check them out. Definitely go pick these up. These are worth picking up. If you're a Dune fan, you're really into the movies, go pick them up. I like them. They're worth picking up. You can get them pretty cheap right now too. They're not too expensive. Okay. So anyway, go check them out. On to the main event. Let me get my stupid face out of here. So Dune Part Two. Double G, you kind of alluded to this, and I'll kind of start off here a little bit, and I'll let Mr. Baby go next. You forgot the other end, sir. Just want to make sure you knew that. 2 ends. Thank you. Sorry, just kidding, Zeddy. Here's the thing with Part Two. I'm gonna flat out say it. It's a fantastic, amazing movie. I love this movie. I push back on a lot of people right now saying that Dune Part 2 is a masterpiece, and I feel like no one's giving credit to this phenomenal movie right here. And I've talked to Nico a lot about this already, and it kind of irritates me to be quite honest, because here's the thing. People like this did not get the attention. It feels like very much like I saw literally when I went and saw it last Thursday, I had a guy walk out of the theater from watching it earlier that day when I was coming in. He said, yeah, it's kind of like Batman Begins with Dark Knight. Like the second one's like was better. And I was like, time out. I was like, hold up. Like, I don't like that. But at the same time, I understand the comparison because Batman Begins was not as a commercial success as obviously the Dark Knight. Dark Knight took it to the next level, which is Dune Part 2, right? That's what it's doing right now. And we all know Dune Part 2 is going to have legs, as it should. But it's crazy to me that people are forgetting this. I've seen this movie a billion times by this point. I've seen it like twice in the last 2 weeks, and it gets better every time I watch it.
Every time.
And this is what I will say about the movies, okay? And I'm going to throw it to you, Double G, for your quick reaction on this. And people in the chat, holler at me if you agree with this. But I told Mr. Baby this. I said, I think Dune Part 1 and Dune Part 2 are the inverse of each other. All the strengths and weaknesses of Part 1 are the exact opposite of Part 2. Meaning, I think the pacing and the overall focus and narrative is a much stronger movie in Part 1 than it is in Part 2, right? But Part 2 is a lot more entertaining and interesting because of you're going all over the place and you're going a lot more action-packed than the slow buildup and all the heavy lifting that was done in Dune Part 1. Dune Part 2 is able to partake in and really enhance. I don't think one's better than the other. To me, they are equal. Like, I'm not saying like they're one movie. They are. You could say that. I think that's fair. But to me, they're just equal. They have their strengths and weaknesses. But to me, I don't love one more than the other. They are both masterpiece filmmaking of science fiction. Like, it's just what it is. And people who are like, Dune Part 2 is amazing. It's like, dude, go back to watch Part 1. Part 1 is an incredible, like, the amount of dense material you put in this freaking movie is like, it still baffles me how Denny did it. It's incredible. I could go on for hours and analyze what they did right in this movie. So, but that being said, Dune Part 2 is, to me, the inverse of it, which is all the action that you need to have in this movie is there. And it's great. So, Double G, really quick, do you agree on my assessment of that?
Yeah, no, I feel similarly. I have them rated the same currently on my Letterboxd account. As of this second. Again, I do want to rewatch Part 2, kind of.
Sure. Me too.
How do I feel about it the second time
That's
around?
Fair. Yeah.
Might feel better, might feel worse. I don't know. I'm open to whatever. But I think I'm going to love it either way. It really doesn't matter. It's a brilliant 2 films, and I'm interested to see how this trilogy, because that seems to be what Denny wants to do.
How this movie ends, there's no effing way. Like, we'll get to that. There's no effing way. He's like, this movie's getting a 3rd movie. We'll get into that genius here. Mr. Baby, I just, first of all, I just love I can go on a Dune adventure with you. Just by the
dude,
way,
it's so cool. It's so
like
cool. Yeah.
it's cool because we can geek out about Dune now together, and I think it's just going to get deeper and deeper as we go.
Oh, amen.
But right. Which again, I just love Mr. Baby. I love this kid. So so we talked about this, and I don't want to spoil your thoughts, but give me your take on what I kind of pitched to you, and then you can kind of get into your thoughts of Dune, and I'll get you after that, Double G.
Yeah. So why I'm really thankful for this show today, to talk with you each about it and the people watching, is that this is the first time I'm really gonna get to talk about it in being like fully firmly digested. When I was talking when I have talked about part two, I got to see it twice early, like right away. And I do a lot of content. I have a TikTok, I have podcasts, I have tweets. So I try to get a lot of thoughts out. Right. I agree with the both of you that I do really see them as just one giant story. Right. And I think they complement each other well. I already loved and adored part one. My excitement for two is off the charts. And for a lot of what Paul is saying, I do agree with a lot of the sentiment in the fact that they kind of do the opposite things for each other. And that's why they both work really well. I agree that one does so much heavy lifting that it almost feels like an impossible task that Villeneuve pulled off. My only thing that was ever about part one was I feel like I got it and was locked in and pedal to the metal right away. I do know for part one, for a lot of people, and something I try to do when I look at a movie and talk about it on shows like this is I do try to put myself in somebody else's shoes. I do feel like if you are not super locked into part one, you won't get that 10 out of 10 experience. Whereas in part two, there's a lot more for an audience to hold on to. And this is why I love you, Paul. How could I have predicted that you would have put up the thing I was going to say? This right here, I can't do this. This right here on the screen is why I have part two slightly better than part one. But I do keep them.
That's fair.
As
That's
a
fair. Yeah.
I am really starting to treat and talk about them all as one thing, but I'm a massive emotional viewer. There was a lot more for me to hold on to emotionally in part two than part one. Also in a different way.
Sure.
I feel like the relationship between and I love just calling them Timmy and Zendaya because I feel like they have done such a good job promoting the film together too.
Dude,
there's so much that they do together that, man, is also a reason why I think a lot more people are talking about part two the way they are. I think there's a lot more that you could feel in the heart from this film.
I agree with that.
Than the first one for some people. But yeah, I also think too, just to comment on something real quick, I think they're both masterclass filmmaking. I really do.
Agreed.
But having seen, I was able to see the reissue one in theaters again 2 weeks before I saw part two. He somehow, I'm telling you, he somehow dials up what he's doing in part two. Like some of those wide scope shots and the action and just the way I'm really impressed what he did with Chani too. And we'll talk about that. What he does with her, I'm just going to go into the take real quick. I also believe what the second one has going for it a little bit more than the first one is you have a character in Chani who, as the film progresses, I truly believe the audience becomes her, like her perspective
absolutely
becomes you
Good
in the
point.
audience.
Mm-hmm.
And she becomes this kind of character and this voice of reason that you are sitting in the seats thinking about and watching, and the way he chooses. I can't wait to listen to the episode. I love Peter Berriman. He's my guy.
Okay, first of all, I don't mean to interrupt. I'm so sorry. Pete, I want you to know, I was literally gonna tell him that just a second ago. Like, dude, you are literally a clone of Timothée Chalamet. Like you are. I look at you as the same person. I'm not joking either. You guys were. I see Timmy. I think I see Mr. Baby. That's all I see. I'm not even BSing you. Sorry. Go ahead.
That's a compliment of the highest degree that I cannot thank everyone enough with. I'm not going to say that is the truth. I'm just going to say thank you for those that believe it. But what I will say, and I will plug him for this, Timothée Chalamet, he is my skinny king. He gave fellow skinny boys like me hope in the world that we can be that guy if we try to be that guy. So shout out to Timmy. So shout out to my guy, Timothée Chalamet. But yeah, Zendaya becomes what they both do with Chani, meaning her and Denis, was so smart. And she becomes a character that by the end of the film, and to close it on her, you can really say, I understand and feel and can relate to.
Yeah. So, let's just go. F it. We're just, because it's my show. We can do what the hell we want.
We can do whatever we want.
Yeah. Double G. Let's just get into Zendaya because and Chani's Chani's character, because I think this is one of the biggest things to talk about in the movie, to be honest. And let's be real. Part 1 doesn't have Zendaya in it, and I'm not saying that's she's the reason the movie is doing better. I think it's a number of factors. I think she's a legitimate factor. There's no way you can ignore it, because I think she's a great actress. I mean, I'm not the biggest Zendaya fan, but like her Chani character is great, and there is a presence when she shows up at the end of Part 1. It always kind of hits me when I watch it. I'm like, oh yeah, because she's at the very beginning and at the very end. She really bookends that movie so well. And then when you go into Part 2, like you said, Mr. Baby, that like it becomes that she becomes the audience in fact. And I love that. That's a great comparison. So let's talk about her character for a minute. Double G, what did you think of her as a character in this movie, and like just from the previous film? Like, are you a fan of Zendaya? Like, just and what he did in this movie with the character. Go ahead and say your thoughts.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think obviously online there's been a ton of discussion about the changes. I haven't read the book personally, but I've seen enough discussion about the changes, and making her a skeptic character. I think is really interesting. I think it, like you said, was kind of a good audience POV kind of change for the character. There's a quote in here in this book I have for Paula Dune, written by Kevin J. Anderson, written literally as a quote that says, "How does a hero become a tyrant?" I think that's kind of the journey we see in this movie, and we see that through Chani's eyes in the film.
Great point.
I think that's really what Villeneuve was trying to get across. And I know that there's some of that bleeds into Messiah, and maybe Messiah is bleeding into Part 2 a little bit as well. Yeah. I have not read that stuff personally. I'm very excited to get into it, obviously. But yeah, I liked what she did. Zendaya as an actress, I've always enjoyed her work. I've seen a lot of criticism of her work, honestly, online. But I've always found her to be fine in the stuff.
I criticize. Yeah, only time I will really criticize her is when she dresses as C-3PO, a see-through back, like, thing. Like, that's what I don't understand. I'm just like, do your thing, girl. Like, yeah, do your thing. But it's like, when anyone like in like Hollywood fashion decides to do something really, just wear something normal, please. I mean, it's not whatever. This is not like whatever. Listen, besides that, do what you want.
I was thinking more Metropolis, the woman in Metropolis.
You know what? I say C-3PO, you say Metropolis. It's all the same thing in my opinion, right? No, but so let's talk about that for a minute, because I think that was the biggest thing when I watched this movie, and as someone who actually knows a little bit of this world, decently. And I say decently, not great, but decently. When I watched the movie, I kind of forgot that she was a lot more like go with the flow at first. And but we get to, again, spoiler alert for people who are watching. I mean, God, for God's sakes, go watch the damn movie. It's brilliant. But like, seriously. But the very end, when Paul basically is like, I'm going to take, Irulan as my wife, and she like storms out and rides a freaking worm. I'm like, that didn't happen in the goddamn book. Like, Chani's like, gotta do what you gotta do, Usul. You know, I'm like, okay, like, so I'm thinking here, I'm like, and I kind of, again, it wasn't bad. It wasn't a bad change. I kind of sat back and went, God damn son of a bitch. I know what he's doing. And I said, effing brilliant. Because again, without going, because I think I've been saying to people, you know, since the beginning, and again, I'm not trying to act like I'm some know-it-all because the Messiah's been out for what long I've been alive, but I've been telling people, y'all think Dune is just like fun, like, you know, new Star Wars book. I'm like, y'all don't know until you get into Messiah, because that's when SH really gets effing weird and gets really bonkers. And just go, and from it just goes crazier from there, basically, from every book from and on, in my opinion. But the one thing I will say that Denny has done, and you guys have all kind of touched on this, and I think Chani is a great example of that. And and this is an interesting parallel. I've been rewatching Lord of the Rings right now. We all know those aren't like, they are wonderful, quote, big letters adaptation of the original work. And Peter Jackson and his wife and Fran, they knew how to take this book and mold it to a mainstream audience, but take the soul of what that story is and make it work. Denny has done the same damn thing with Dune, and he's doing it because he knows, if I can make these characters relatable, but also make the world, you know, not focus on the crazy stuff, but like really focus on what makes the story work, which is someone who is rejecting what people think they are, and they become great, and also have to stand, you know, there's lots of great themes in this, in that Dune Part 1 kind of sets up, and Dune Part 2 takes by the throat and runs with it. Chani, I'm terrible with names. You all know this. Chani, Zendaya's character, he, by modifying that character and making her be that, like you said, Nico, as the audience, but also making her have that, adding that drama element between him and her, and now Irulan, and using that to spearhead because to me, you can't just finish it at Part 2, and he knew that, but he said, I can make it work if I have to, but if I want to make Part 3 and really tell the story of Paul and why it's worth telling the story, you have to make some liberal changes to it. And I think it's a genius, brilliant move to do it, in my opinion. It sounds like you guys are all in agreement.
Yeah, because didn't he, I heard this from Paul. I don't know if you told me this or somebody else did, or if it was my friend. Didn't the reason Herbert write Messiah is because he realized everyone wasn't interpreting the ending the right way?
It sounds right.
It ended,
right.
And like everyone was like, oh, like, so like Paul's a hero. He saved them. He led them in the paradise. And he's like, no, he's become a global tyrant, right? And what I think because you're right in the book, she's very like, you have to do what you have to do.
Oh,
that
Ursula, I'm your concubine. I'm here for you. You know,
that in a way absolves him, at least to a reader, right? So to have to modify her the way he did challenges that, shows you more of what he actually is. And you're right, it sets up incredible drama for something in the future. And it also lets this idea of what he's doing kind of sit there and be morally gray for people by the end of the movie, which makes him a lot more interesting. I also think the movie does a really good job of really setting up Paul to also appear like a tragic figure, like a tragic figure to destiny, right? And it's not as cut and dry as, oh, he's a villain by the end. Well, that's in the eyes of who's looking at him, right? Yeah.
Or it's in the eyes of who's ever doing the history of him, documenting the history.
Exactly, right? So it's you could unravel those peels of to be so timely throughout our history on Earth, whatever, which it already is a big commentary on.
Just to throw out here to you guys, you know, because again, I say that because who's documenting? If you know the history of Dune, who's the one documenting the history of Muad'Dib? His wife, Princess Irulan. and it's her perspective. So it again, and we have that again, the subtleties that Denny does in this movie to set up these things in Dune Messiah and the motivations for these things are all there. It's brilliant. And I think, and to me, I think Zendaya's Shawnee's character, it's better served this way. Honestly, I really do, because now there has to be, when you come together and you have, you know, they're reconcile. Oh my God, I can't say the word. Them reconciling, to word it a little differently, will mean so much more to them when you have the fact he takes Irulan as his wife, and it's going to be a big deal for the audience, and it's going to be good because then when that happens, those new things they'll just say. I mean, it doesn't take 2 and 2 to put together. Literally, you go what you're going to get. Those things matter more later on, right? It becomes more of a you know. But but the thing is, all the themes that Herbert and I think Denny wants to do, he knew the end game had to be Messiah. So you see Paul's whole journey of resisting being this tyrant or being the leader is all there. But I think it's just sometimes, because what I love about art is you can interpret it so many different ways, right? I interpret, again, this is not maybe the artist's version, but this is why I interpret it, because people, like, we all see Paul or Leto Atreides, you know, he was called to this. And the one thing that I think the first movie doesn't do, but again, you don't have to do it, but he, my perception of that in the book was he knew he was going to die. Like, he knew he was going to die basically when he went to do, right? That's, to me, evident in the book. Like, he knows, like, we're effed.
Oh yeah.
Like, right. But in the movie, they kind of allude to that. Like, the way Oscar Isaac plays it, you get that feeling without saying it or without him in his head, right? But I like the fact that he went with it anyway. He had to, because he knew for the better of everything, if I don't do this, more bad things are going to happen. I have no choice. Paul is in the same situation in Dune Part Two. But it's a lot grander scales, and he's got more power at his disposal, but you know, more than even his dad did. Which I love these themes that we're unraveling here. So, Double G, tell me about what your Paul's journey, how, you know, tell me about your thoughts on this whole thing with Paul's journey here.
I think I've enjoyed the story to this point. It's interesting. I think a lot of the changes that we talked about previously, like Johnny and what happens with Paul, for me, I feel like a lot of that hinges on the third part. How that's executed matters a lot to, you know, how people will really feel about this at the end of the day. Because if they bungle the third part, then people are going to go back and say, well, why did we change this and why did we change that?
Why'd you do Dark Knight Rises? You just Dark Knight Rises it, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, for those who like Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah.
Anyway, continue.
I know that, and one of the things, not to divert too much, but I know one of the aspects of the book is that they have a child together, Chani and Paul, and did not happen in the movie, but they made a point to show you that they had sex.
They foreshadowed.
They did.
Hey guys, they banged.
Yeah,
we can move on, right?
So I wonder if they are setting that up for the third film instead. The child aspect of everything, and her having to come back to Paul at some point because he says that he knows that she'll be back.
I turned into your concubine. I gotta come back because I'm Prager's now. You know, I mean, like, that's kind of. I mean, I hope it's more than that. I mean, I think it will. I think it will.
It'll be deeper and more complex than that. But,
Mr. Baby, your twin, how they built this whole thing up with the themes. Like, I know you love it, but I want to just talk about, like, what do you think? Like, do you think that, like, this? Are you buying what Denny and Chalamet are putting down and setting up for this third movie?
Oh yeah. And I think credit to the both of them, but massive kudos to Chalamet. It's very, I don't want to say it's very rare.
You take that back, sir. Take that back.
Oh,
You
damn.
take that back.
But like Rise of Skywalker is good, so that
It is good. I will die on that hill.
I'll light
my
speed
guy.
skip to the theater.
Thanks, Eddie.
Double G, come on now.
What I think that sometimes, I don't want to say it's rare in a movie, but because this movie also has a longer runtime, you see his performance really progress too. And I have to say, it's a situation where if his performance is not as progressive and as apparent and as strong as it is, you could get to the end of that movie and be very confused on where he's at or what he's doing. And I think it's a credit to the writing and direction, where we start off with the reluctance to a call, with the hesitation to the call, to the in tears refusal and fear of the call, to full on it's the only way, to full on I'm the Messiah, to lead them to paradise. It's like, holy, like, man, the scene where he goes full Lisan El Gaib is it's so good, man. I get chills every time I'm seeing it. And that's the moment where I'm like, wow, this is an incredible performance, because he was a different person, quite literally, an hour ago.
That meeting scene, where he just starts telling everyone everything about their lives, and
it was so great. And I think that's a testament to his work as an actor. I think he's at a point in his career where he was able to explode like that. And I think Villeneuve really has set him up, because then you go back to the first film, and this is why they work together so well, is he's even telling his father, like, he doesn't even know if any of this is for him in general. And Oscar Isaac Leto says, all you have to be is my son then at that point. And then it comes back full circle. Well, the great man, he doesn't choose to lead, he's called to it, and he's quite literally called to it in here, right? It comes full circle. And I think, too, what they set up really brilliantly is that when he says he sees so many futures where the enemies prevail, but he sees a narrow way through. And Jessica says, I'm sorry about Chani. And he says, she'll learn to understand. I've seen it. So it's also giving the audience something to hold on to. Like, okay, everything we're about to see, there's going to be something else we're getting to. And okay, Chani's going to be part of it. So if Chani's going to be part of it, us sitting here, you almost get this sense of like, all right, I'm going to be with you. I'm going to ride with you and see what happens and see where this goes. And when we get to whatever that is when we're going to make our judgment about it. I think they did. There's two reasons why I think, and y'all are going to both call me crazy, I think. There's two reasons why I think his performance and the character of Paul Atreides works, and why I think of what I know will happen in Dune Messiah is going to work, is I think he prepped the audience with some of those lines. And I think a show like Game of Thrones has helped this audience
100%
be able to deal with these morally
Mr. Baby
characters.
If I may interrupt for just one moment. When Game of Thrones was in its heyday, you can find the old tweets. I don't know or X posts, whatever you want to call it. You can find them. I went on record and said, y'all need to go get on Dune and get like HBO or Showtime needs to get on this and put this as a series, because it's so dense. It's enriched, it's complex, it's interesting. This is like literally the science fiction Game of Thrones.
And it's so funny, dude. This is why we're like this.
Yeah, that's
I was just gonna say, I feel about this world now the way I did when my Game of Thrones explosion happened. And I'll tell you what's funny. I see a lot of where Mr. Martin got some inspiration from, albeit in some different ways, but Leto and a Ned Stark are very similar characters, right? Families are massacred. Mr. Paul here is very, in a certain way, Jon Snow coded, but now we don't know where it was going in the books. We only know where it was going to the TV show, even though I've One day we have to talk about that though, because I still have the theory of he did tell them how the story would end, and they did. And he did because that is, I'm telling you, I've read those 5, but that is where the show is going to go. There's a lot of other players and stuff, but it was built. It's called Song of Ice and Fire, for Christ's sake. It's the 2 of them, and it's going to end in tragedy.
We all know George R. R. Martin. He told him how to end it and tried to backpedal. He is
backpedaling.
Hard. 100% agree. Yeah. And I have a feeling if he ever finishes the series, it will be different.
Well, whatever. But I don't want to talk about that right now.
It has to be. At this point, it has to be.
I think you're making great points, because I think that's the thing about this movie that is so almost, I want to say understated, to be honest, because I think there's so much spectacle, which we'll get to here in a second. But I think, to me, most movies that are good or last or successful have usually, again, I say usually, some substance to it. And I think the substance to what Dune Part 2 is all the things that you're saying about Paul Atreides or Muad'Dib or Usul. God, that's the other thing I wish that Herbert didn't do, is give Paul 5 different terms you could call him. It's like, just give me the 2, please. Anyway, the thing is, his complexity and his progression and where it's going and the themes of that are also rich and also interesting, because they are timeless. And it is, but that's the thing. So, and I think Timothy Chalamet does a great job of really showing that progression, like you guys said, and it is brilliant. And I think that Denny has done a masterful job of building up to this, because people, I want to bring this up, but I just got to say it. It kind of irritated me if people are like, Paul is the white savior. It's like, hold up, time out. Like, on the surface, I understand that. Like, from that perspective, I understand that on the surface level, that's what this is, the class. That's classic. But I've always said, and without spoiling, I said, you have to understand the themes of Dune and know that's not exactly what it is on the surface.
I would argue the opposite.
Exactly.
I would argue it turns that trope on its head.
Exactly.
1,000%. Yeah.
And I think that what's awesome is that this movie and this so far, this franchise on the mainstream level has transcended that criticism, because I was seeing that a lot when the trailers were coming out, like early for Part 1. But then Part 1 came out, and then kind of, again, because of COVID, I think people just weren't, like, they're like, oh, I'm not going to see it in the theater and blah, blah, blah. And again, like Batman Begins before it, with if you use like Dark Knight comparison, it kind of built up, like, people like yourself and myself and Double G here, they were all like showing people this movie, like, hey, Part 1 is legit, y'all. Like, it's a phenomenal film. And people realized it, and then they kind of went with it. But it feels like now, people, especially now, as you see it, it's coming to a head. And Denny's been very obvious, like, hey, y'all, like, this is coming to a conclusion. There is Paul has a specific story to tell, and it's very interesting. So I think you're seeing all those seeds here. And the one thing I want to say too, and again, it's been a while since I read the book or listened to the book, so people who are Dune heads, don't please throw things at me. But one of the things I want to talk about too is Jessica. Was her more of a manipulator in this, which I was not prepared for, and I don't remember being. Again, maybe I'm wrong, but I liked that interpretation of using Jessica. I thought it was great, because it shows you how manipulative people are, and how people, again, whether it be politics, religion, doesn't matter, how people can, influence and, turn things on and be like, well, actually, because she's very integral to Paul being the, oh my God, I can't say the word right now.
Listen, El Gaib.
Thank you. I can't.
Listen, El Gaib.
The Gaib, whatever. El Gaib.
So haunting.
She pushes that narrative and helps Paul get there, but for her own selfish ambitions, which is very not what I expected Jessica to be as a Reverend Mother. And maybe I'm misinterpreting the books or don't remember the books very well, but that choice I thought was another brilliant move, because the one thing Dune has done a great job of is show these people are not like, just because you're a good person, it doesn't mean you're going to survive or should survive. But and that's the thing. And like Leto is a great example of that. He's the only one that, like, I think is pretty true to his character all the way through, and Paul too, I would say. But like, besides that, like, there's been alterations, but they're good alterations for the most part. And I would say that Jessica in part 2 specifically really goes a different direction, but I think it's a direction that's necessary, especially when you give in to Aaliyah, the sister. Oh my God, like, that's awesome. Like, they handled that. I mean, you couldn't handle that any better, right? The Aaliyah, the sister, talking. That's all perfect there. So before we get into the spectacle, I have one more thing to go into, but talk about Jessica. Double G was, people, if you're watching, leave a comment. If you're listening live, am I crazy about Jessica? If you know the story super well, am I forgetting something? Because I don't remember Jessica being that manipulative to the people to help Paul get to that from a more selfish ambition. But tell me about Jessica and the sweet, sweet beautifulness of Rebecca Ferguson. Oh my God.
Yeah, well, I'm a huge Rebecca Ferguson fan. Ever since I saw Mission Impossible Rogue Nation in 2015. Great film.
I don't watch Mission Impossible movies. Go on.
I love Mission Impossible, but that's where I saw her. That's where she made her debut in my world, in film world.
Was she the one in that comedy? What's that movie with Casey Affleck that Ben Affleck directed? Was that her, or was that somebody else I'm thinking of? I think that's somebody else. Disregard. I digress. Continue. Anyway, Rebecca Ferguson is beautiful and deserves everything. Continue.
Yes, exactly. And I do need to check out Silo at some point, but
I do too. I do too.
I loved how creepy she was, and the the conversations between her and Aaliyah. I thought, while I was sitting there, I was just thinking, man, this is weird, but like a weird in a good way.
Perfect weird.
If that makes sense. I was like, how are general audiences going to take this? Because I'm loving this, but I know that general audiences don't always love weird. I loved the way they handled that aspect of the story. Again, I haven't read the books, but I do know, I have seen David Lynch's Dune. I've seen the little girl in the film. It's a very weird part of that film, honestly. And the Anya Taylor-Joy cameo to me was cool, but I was also like, wow, she aged up really fast. If she's going to be in Dune Messiah, good Lord. Again, I don't know the canon of the books or exactly how she ages up compared to other people, but yeah, it's I love you too, Nick. But yeah, I really enjoyed her performance. I thought Rebecca Ferguson. There's a lot of people who gave maybe recent best performances. I mean, Javier Bardem was the best I've seen him in a long time. So
yeah, it's probably my favorite. It's probably my favorite Javier Bardem performance since No Country for Old Men, probably.
Yeah.
But I agree with you on Ferguson. I actually have been saying, like, you're so right. Like, there's so many great performances in this film. It's like hard to rank and pick one and be like, oh, they're the one. I said I was a big component the first time around. Now I am a big Oscars awards guy. That is true. What Zeddy just said in the comments. I'm going to get that on one sec. Paul's not an awards guy. But
I don't hold that against. I don't hold that against you. I still love you.
I think she should have been nominated for the first one. So I'm sitting here watching her once again, dude. Now she's full witch. Now she's drinking the water of life, spazzing out on the ground. Now she's walking around talking to a child that's in her belly, right? So I would say she, if anyone was going to be nominated for Dune Part 2, I know a lot of people are going to say Chalamet. I think so. I think everyone, Jesus Christ, just give all the awards to this movie now. It's not even worth it.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, I just
I would give it to Ferguson, and you're right, Paul. She's not the main architect in the books, and I really liked that change and
I like it too.
having her be that big proponent of everything. I think it just works. It makes it creepier, and like you said,
I
it draws on the theme so much stronger.
I also like that conversation with her and the Reverend Mother towards the end about sides that they were having in between each other in their heads. Because ultimately, the Reverend Mother is correct. There's not really a side. They're all kind of going on the same plans. You know, she just created the Kwisatz Haderach or whatever too early, is my
Or
understanding.
did she? Or
Yeah, well,
did that's the thing is Paul Atreides the Kwisatz Haderach? I mean, that's
yeah.
again, that's the beauty of Messiah. I think that's the brilliance of Frank Herbert that I think, you know, you kind of see that progress over time. It's interesting. And I think that like I like the fact, and see, this is why these movies work so well. Part one and part two are so brilliant because all the things that Frank Herbert was doing, that he have the luxury of a novel and prose of getting into people's heads and things like that. Like you don't have that luxury unless you do inner monologues all the time, like David Lynch, which didn't work. And the beauty of this movie is that, and I think again, going back to the Lord of the Rings comparison, you have these, you have certain situations you need to enhance and you need to get your point across. And sometimes you tweak certain things. It may not be 100% faithful, but in the end, it's all telling the same thing. And tweaking Jessica's character, tweaking, which I'm going to get a good, you already talked about Stilgar. That's good. Another, you know, little segue here. You by doing these things, you modify and enhance the story, and it doesn't make it worse or make it awful. Because in the end, I've always said this about canon. It's not about the fine details. It's about the main story, the main purpose, right? Like you can default on canon. The small details or whatever, but it's the big details. Like where does Jessica end up? That's the bigger detail, right? It's not
Yeah.
about if she's like is 100% purely innocent. Like I'm Reverend Mother now. I'm 100% pure innocent. No, like you don't have to do that. And by playing that a certain way, it only enhances the main theme and Paul's character and what they're probably going to be, not only in the movie itself, obviously, but also what they build up in this movie or the part three. So we got two more things and we'll get out of here. I want to talk about Stilgar real quick because again, this is my perception. Maybe I'm wrong. People doing heads, yell at me in the comments, in live chat, whatever. Harvard, I love Stilgar for the record. I love Stilgar in this movie. He's great. Javier Bardem plays him a lot more goofy in this movie. It's not a bad thing because I just rewatched part one again on Sunday, right? He is so goddamn serious. So goddamn serious. And I love that. He plays that so well. Then there is the whole spit scene, but he plays it so straight. It's like it's still funny, but it's still like serious. It feels like in part two, they went a little more goofy, a little more looser with the character. And again, I think you have to do that because you want him to be eccentric because of Paul and being the Elziel Gaib. Now, all that being said, he's a little goofier in the movie than the book. He's a lot more stoic in the book, and in the movie, he's a lot more like, you know, I don't know. That's just my perception. Maybe I'm wrong on this, but I still loved it.
I think when Dene chose to go really dark at the end, especially with the Paul stuff, he probably thought let's work in some levity to this film because Stilgar had my theater laughing a lot.
No, he did. He was brilliant. He was perfect. Nico, what do you think of Stilgar?
He's another example where I agree with you. I was thinking about this today that in true retrospect, he is a little goofier in this one. I do think
it's not bad.
Works.
It's not a bad thing.
It's not bad at all. I will say though, he does have this interesting progression too, though, where he starts seeing the signs and he becomes the fanatic, right? He becomes a lot of characters have these really specific roles in the movie that play with the theme, whether you look at Fade as the false prophet they're trying to raise up to challenge the true prophet, right? Then you look at Stilgar, who is the perfect, he's kind of the representation of all the Fremen of that religious fanatic, right? And by the end of the movie, he's not even silly anymore. He's a blind follower on his knees for Paul. which I think is actually a really strong progression from him in terms of a performance too, because even though he started off kind of goofy and he was still delivering a lot of the serious stuff and the serious moments, and by the end of it, I mean, man, if Paul says jump, he'll say how high, right? And he's the first one to get on the warship, then you see him screaming for the Lieutenant Al Gaib, right? So like he's full on. He went from a leader of one of the sieges to Paul's right hand man, Paul's number one guy, right? So I think he's a great performance too, and he represents a lot of that religious piece, a lot of that faith piece that Florence Pugh talks about at the top of the movie.
Segue, Florence Pugh, thank you very much. So okay, I'm gonna be a guy for a second here, y'all, and I'm just gonna be real with y'all. I got a big old crush on Florence Pugh. She is just, listen, I typically am not attracted to blondes very much. As a blonde man myself, never been, just not into blondes. Never. It's very rare when I get really attracted to blondes. Florence Pugh, there is something about her that is just, there's an electricity whenever she's on screen. I am just drawn to her. She is obviously a gorgeous person, but it's not just her looks. It's her energy. There is an energy that she brings on the camera whenever she's on. I'm like,
she's brilliant.
And I've said this before. She's going to be in Thunderbolts, the main, as White Widow or whatever, in Thunderbolts. I've said before, Thunderbolts will be a giant movie just on Florence Pugh alone.
Yeah, she's big. Yeah,
she is just she's a phenomenal talent. She is a phenomenal talent. I think she's beautiful. I think she's a phenomenal. She just knows how to act, and there's something about her. And the little screen time we get of her as Irulan. Oh my God, she's so good. And her outfits are really interesting. Like, they're not like, I love about Dune is they really went like, there's extravagance and this kind of ridiculousness to it, but there's also a regalness. And that last one she has on with the hat, like, or
with the face. Yeah,
dude, that was like, that's
so cool.
That's a phenomenal design. She eats up every scene she's in. And again, they use her so well to really enhance the plot and also like use her as like kind of like an innocent bystander. So like I loved it. I think she was great. Again, she's not like didn't blow my socks off as far as like, her performance, because she didn't have much to do, but she makes such an impact when she's on there.
Such an impact.
And I just cannot wait to see her in Messiah, because I think we're going to see, I don't want to spoil anything. You're going to see someone who gets desperate in Messiah, and it can get bad. And when that person's desperate and they're the one basically in charge of your history, may not be good. So just want to throw it out there. Yeah, exactly. I'm with you, Adam. Like, Pizza Time, you're on the money. Like, she's a real one. She's legit. And I heard someone like spit on her at like one of the festivals. I want to punch that person in the face. And you spit on anyone, I want to punch you in the face. But Florence, what the hell does she do? She's like she's such a nice person.
She does nothing wrong.
She does nothing wrong. You're a POS, man. Whoever did that. So anyway, thought she did great. So last quick hitter we'll do before we do the kind of the spectacle. Fader Alpha. God, what's his name? Butler.
Mr. Austin Butler, yeah.
Austin Butler. I would say he did, again, kind of like Florence Pugh, did a lot with little. I think they probably should have put him in more to kind of build up a little bit. Maybe.
A little bit more, I would agree with you. I could have done with a little bit more of him.
Yeah, I feel like, especially when they're setting up things with like the whole like the impregnates the Bene Gesserit witch, and I'm like, did we have to know this? You could have done. I mean, they're setting up. I know what they're setting up for Messiah and everything, and like also you're kind of establishing like why what Bene Gesserit's up to. Again, brilliant stuff. I feel like they could have went a little more with Fade and maybe done more, but again, maybe less is more in this point. I thought Austin Butler did a great job as Fade. That's exactly what Fade would act like. So, works for me. Mr. Baby, Florence Pugh. Austin Butler. I know you love both of them.
I thought Florence Pugh was great. I can't add anything more to what you said already. I did want to comment on something real fast because I didn't. There's a big segue there. The way to make this film the greatest thing ever for me is you throw in a cameo of my girl Anya Taylor-Joy, which I'm so mad that got spoiled before. That got spoiled for me. Early. Variety did it, and when Variety did it, it just became a thing. That was so cool just because, and this will segue back into Florence and Austin for me, is you have 4, and if you count Taylor-Joy, 5 of they're probably the 5 strongest young actors in Hollywood right now. And it's crazy. They're all in this movie. Like truly, it is hard for me to put anyone else above them 5. If you're saying, I know Austin Butler just turned like 32, but he's still considered a young actor. If you say who are the top 5 young actors right now in terms of gravitas and talent and presence,
it's
I
them.
would say those 5.
They're all in this movie. They're all in this movie, which is great. Florence Pugh, always great. She's just solid. She's incredible in everything she does. I'm a big Austin Butler guy. I loved him in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I loved him in Elvis. I loved him here. I think he gives a great performance. When you can perfectly capture Stellan Skarsgård's voice and be able to deliver it in as convincing of a way, that's how you know it's a great performance. I thought he's chilling. He's hateable. He's creepy. I am scared every time he did something because it was so convincing. I will agree. I wish they gave him a scene or 2 more to really make that fight with Paul. It already had a lot of weight and was really well executed. Agreed.
I just
100%.
thought if you give him a little bit more when he steps up and he does the cousin thing, it's like, oh, damn. It could have been just a little harder. But I say the same thing I'll say the same thing as I do sometimes in other films. Sometimes if you do, like you said, Paul, less is more. Sometimes if you give another character too much, it kind of becomes their thing.
Yeah.
And love Austin Butler.
Really quick.
Big Butler guy.
Elder Statesman's dad, or sorry, Double G's dad, Elder Statesman, he loves to say, less is not more. More is more. And I was going to be like, Scott, we're gonna go at it. I love your dad.
Yngwie Malmsteen quote that he loves to say all the time. Yeah.
I love your dad to death. I hope he knows that. Double G. I hope he knows. I freaking love him so much. Anyway, what's your take on really quickly on Pugh and Butler here?
Well, first off, I've been a huge fan of Pugh's since probably 2018, 2019, Fighting with My Family, and there was a film that in 2018 I saw with her too. I can't remember the name right now, but
is it Midsummer?
No, that was 19, I think.
I will never see that movie, by the way.
Is it Fighting with My Family?
Fighting with My Family is one of them.
Yeah.
The 2018 one, I don't remember the name of. But yeah, she's a brilliant actress. I was excited when she joined the MCU. I was excited when she joined Dune Part 2.
Dude, perfect
she's
casting
really
for her, by the way. She's perfect for this character.
She's really elevating in Hollywood pretty fast, which is awesome because she's a great actress. But also kind of a minor role. Fade. Austin Butler as Fade to me was obviously the bigger deal. That fight at the end was awesome. Yeah. The choreography on that fight I thought was really, really well done.
I think Andrew's onto something here, by the way. What you guys take? I think it was a little too fast.
The night
it
fight
ended too quickly.
End?
Yeah, it ended too quickly. It should have been a little bit, teeny bit more.
I thought it was long enough, personally.
Okay.
But I haven't read the book, especially to that point.
I mean,
so I don't know.
That's their own interpretation at that point. I mean, it's like yeah.
In the book, there's something with doesn't he think he gets poisoned too or something? There's
something like that.
Something on the blade or whatever. I do agree. Maybe it could have been a little longer. I did think it was at that point. So much is happening in the movie. I do think the timing is okay. But yeah,
I'm also a mark for whatever the heck Paul did with that jump twist thing. I'm like,
oh god, it's so sick. That was so sick. That was so cool. Just out of nowhere.
That's awesome. So, a couple things. We have one more big thing I want to talk about. I think just the spectacle of Shai Hulud and you know, which by the way, I'll have to turn my camera off. I have to grab something real quick. Shai Hulud and the writing of the worms. I will say I never thought they'd capture that the in a way where it'd be just mesmerizing. And Denny did it. When Paul first rides Shai Hulud, and I was in the IMAX theater, right? I mean, I'm not going to watch this movie in any format until it comes out in my home video, right? But I wasn't in I wasn't one of those weird 4D whatever experience. I was normal IMAX loud as F theater, right? When Paul gets on Shai Hulud and starts just riding it and trying to ride that thing, and I could feel every hit of sand in his face.
Man. Yeah.
Everything the way he shot it, it felt like I was riding Shai Hulud. It was incredible. And I was blown away. They captured that better than I ever could have imagined. And I honestly would go see it again just to experience that again. Yeah. Just that. Go ahead.
I will say I got to experience that twice because I went to see part 1, and that was the footage.
And then you got the
blah blah
same
blah.
Here.
Yeah,
same here. Yeah,
hell yeah, whatever. I have to wait next week because I'm poor as F. Anyway, continue.
But I mean, just to continue on with what Paul was saying, the sound design in this film is just brilliant. The score by Zimmer. I actually could be kind of critical of Hans Zimmer at times. Especially kind of later in his career. I don't think he's up to par with some of the stuff earlier in his career. And
I would agree.
It's one of the reasons why I like that Nolan's gone with Ludwig Göransson for his last 2 films, even though he did want Zimmer for Tenet. I think it's been better for him that he's had Ludwig. But the Dune films have been fantastic, and just the way they mix in all the. I mean, I was listening to the Dune score, and you can hear Stardacar language in the score itself.
Oh, God, yeah,
it's really intricate and cool, and I knew that's exactly what you were going to grab.
Oh, look at this! Look at this! We both came prepared.
Shai Hulud,
dude. I had to.
Now to Shai Hulud.
Let me ask you this, Double G. Did any part of you? Because I did feel this way. I also got to see the sneak preview of part 2, and it did show the scene where he rides the worm. Did any part of you, when you saw part 2, the film in full for real, did any part of you go, wow, I wish I didn't see this scene? Because I did, because I saw them set up for it, and I'm like, damn, I already experienced this for the first time. I've talked about it. I have all my thoughts on it. It still hits so hard. But I'm like, damn, I wish I could be seeing this for the first time with everyone.
I think the worst part of it was I was sitting for probably the first 30, 45 minutes going, well, when is that scene going to come up? Because I know it's here.
That's normal. Yeah, good point.
Yeah. So.
Well, I'm glad everyone kind of agree. I mean, obviously, I mean, I'm not acting like I'm some masterful observer here being like, oh, this scene was incredible. No F Sherlock, right? So the thing is, but I think I want to emphasize how much that first time that he gets on, you really feel that energy of him.
Oh yeah.
And and I just want to say too, so and we'll wrap up here, guys. You guys have been really, really awesome. Staying up late for you guys are all 3 hours ahead of me, whatever. It's super appreciate it.
Heck yeah, man.
And everyone who's watching, please select the like button, subscribe, please. We do lots of fun comments. These guys show up, they're fun. They talk about comics. It's fun. Learn about comics with us. But the cool thing about, and I think that it's been mesmerizing, is the sound of Dune is off the charts incredible. It might be one of the best sounding films, part 1 and part 2, ever. Honestly.
Yes.
Because guys, okay, I saw Dune Part 1 3 times over the weekend when it came out in IMAX. And by the way, it's why it's killing me to only see part 1 once. the thing is about part 1 and part 2, I've seen it a ton. I saw it in the great soundscapes of IMAX. When I got my, I saw it, I streamed it for my friend Justin Bolger. Love you, Justin, if you're watching. I'll see you in a few weeks for Ghostbusters. We watched it on IMAX and it sounded good, right? It sounded fine. And he got into it. I got that thing in 4K, like 4K disc, baby. And listen, you guys can tell me like, look, it looks the same, and like you can't, like you can argue that, and there's arguments made on both sides. You know, if you want to say 4K streaming is the same, you know, it looks almost as good as 4K disc. Depends on how good your internet is, but you know what? Like you can argue that all you want, and I think I can still say it looks better. I still can tell a difference. I'm gonna tell you right now, and anyway, this is undebatable. You cannot get the same sound at a 4K disc as a streaming movie. 4K disc, blow the F out of any stream you do. And let me tell you, you listen to Dune. I have watched this twice in the last 2 weeks, and I turned that mother up on my surround sound, and it is just incredible. It sounds insanely amazing. And I just got to tell you, it blows me away how good it sounds. And I would never want to listen to it not turned up all the way. It just blows me away. My wife says, when you watch Dune, I have no choice but to watch Dune upstairs, meaning she can only hear Dune.
That's funny.
Because it's this like, I just blast it. It's so encompassing.
Yeah.
And Dune 2 is no different. These are some of the best sounding films I've ever heard. And I'm not acting, I don't say that lightly, y'all. So yes, Dune 2, the sound is incredible. You owe it to yourself to listen to the 4K, get the 4K disc, get surround sound, turn that mother up to 211. You're going to be blown away how amazing it sounds and how it's enriched you feel for the storytelling. And by the way, Warner Brothers, you're not paying attention, but y'all get on the ball about this. Give me an IMAX formatted screen disc of Dune Part 1 and Part 2 right now. Like I need it. I don't want this the standard, I want the IMAX, the best blown up image I can get on my TV. God damn it, give it to me. You owe it to me. God damn it. Anyway, spectacle. I thought the ending was so incredible. Seeing Shai Hulud, swoop in like this and everybody, and like, that was you couldn't do that any better than I could imagine. That was insanely incredible. And yes, my last comment will be, I'll leave it to you guys. I bought this weeks before.
So did I.
I did thankfully, because they're gone now, right? But
they're gone.
I have Madame Web,
dude,
to thank.
The same time I got
the same, I was like, are they selling these now? They went, yeah. I'm like, I'm buying one. So I wouldn't have this if it wasn't for Madame Web. So thank you, Madame Web. You were good for something. So I'm just gonna say that I did bring this with me, and it was funny. As I was walking in, I heard someone over here go, as I was walking past them, say, I just want to see one in person, what it looks like. And as soon as I walked by, I go, oh, there it is. So I brought it with me because a practical reason. I didn't want to spend a bunch of money on popcorn at the theater because I watch my calories all the time. That's just what I do. And I put all my Skinny Pop, free publicity here, Skinny Pop, all the Skinny Pop popcorn in this bad boy, and just brought it in like I was whatever. No one.
They let you walk.
Wiser. Oh yeah, I just walked in. What's up? Put all my popcorn, and I used Shai Hulud.
You bring up a funny point. Do you all? I know you both remember this, but I remember when it was like stressful to try to like sneak stuff in the theater, like snacks.
Oh, I remember.
Yeah.
Dude, they don't care now because a ticket costs $100 anyway. So like. I walk in with I'll walk in with everything now. I just didn't think to walk in. Wait, so you ate out of it? You actually have?
I actually ate through Shai Hulud's.
I have not. It's a sensory thing for me. I can't have food that touches these. Like I won't do it. I just got it for fun. This is a disturbing sensation for me. I'm just doing it for content right now because I'm a content man. This is
guys, you know what a bidet is? It's like a bidet.
I have one in my bathroom. First, I swear to God. I have one in my bathroom. It's the best thing I've ever invested in. I swear to God.
Like same thing. Life changing. Just takes once. Once you go through it, it's just one little squirt and you're good. That's all I gotta say. It just takes a minute. I will say, Mr. Baby, I did not. I won't confess to saying I did it the whole time because I filled this thing up pretty high. So I did take it off and ate without Shai Hulud's, but I greased it up, you could say. So anyway, all right. Yeah. All right. Double G, let's just take this out. Let's just wrap this mother up. Let's just end on just greasing up the Dune popcorn bucket. What are we thinking on Dune and your kind of final thoughts here?
I'm really excited for 3 years from now when we get part 3 or whenever that's going to be, because it's probably going to be a little bit.
I'm worried it's going to be even longer.
I know.
That's what he says, but do we really believe that?
No.
I believe it'll take a couple of years at least.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, whatever. But I mean, especially now. I mean, he may have a financial incentive, which is never the best idea. But I mean,
yeah.
If you make a movie between it, I mean, to be honest, I think you got to make it now. I mean, the people are stoked on it. You could wait, make another movie, take a break. I mean, take a break, sure, but don't wait super long. Just finish it out, get it done. Do your thing. Yeah. Anything else you want to say, Garrison?
Sorry, I'm reading Chris's comment, but no, that's about it. I love the film, love the series so far.
Shout out to the Reverend.
Get into reading the books,
Reverend. Yeah. Audiobook, Double G. Audiobook. Get on that.
I got it. I got both audiobooks, the first two. So.
You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna get it because we're all becoming Dune heads together. Like, we're gonna get into a group chat and other upcoming newcomer Dune heads like us. And we're going to embrace this together. There you go.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So Double G, you'll be hearing from us. We'll get a text group or a DM group going. That's how we do it these days with the social media and those kids. Anyway, but dude, Gareth, thanks for coming on and staying up late. I know it's late for you. Super appreciate it.
No problem.
Where can people find you? Yeah, all your jazz.
You can find me on Twitter at Gryfun3, Gryfun3, Instagram as well. You can find me on Letterboxd at Gryfun, Gryfun, and you can find me Tuesday nights on the Deucecast Extra, the Deucecast Movie Shows YouTube page, where we review Star Wars and Marvel TV shows every Tuesday night at 10.
Oh, that's wonderful. I'm glad. I need to check out your show. I haven't checked it out yet, so thanks for reminding me. I appreciate that. Sorry, it's Shai Hulud. Just he when he's around, I just gravitate towards him.
I could tell.
So yeah, I know. I mean,
truly an after-hour show here. It's getting very suggestive.
What this is? Dude, I miss a. How could you not be mesmerized by this bucket? I mean, come on.
No, it's pretty magnetic. It is.
It is.
It's
I can't help
because it's insane that it exists. That's why. And yet,
I agree.
It was one of the best-selling things of the year, I think.
It has. Is this thing I could probably sell this thing for $1,000 right now, and it's not. It still wouldn't be worth it.
Oh man, I think on eBay they go for a good amount.
Guys, this is the gift that keeps on giving. That's all I gotta say. So, Mr. Baby, why don't you promote yourself, my friend, and do your thing.
Yeah, you can follow me at Nico Caruso on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. Follow the Vigilante 1939 podcast. I do with Zeddy in the comments, and my father as well, talking about all things Star Wars, Marvel, DC, etc. We do have a recent review of Dune. We also, Zeddy had Carlos from formerly the Nerd Room on it.
I miss Carlos.
The new Superman stuff.
Yeah.
He's taking a little bit of a break from podcasting, but he came and he helped Zeddy out. It's been a great show. I'm about halfway through
awesome.
it. And if you are into more film stuff like Dune Part 2 and also some like film analysis and film award stuff, the Oscars are on Sunday. You could follow me at Nico Knows Film on TikTok, and I got a lot of reviews, some Oscar predictions, some Oscar commentary on there. And I have 3 different videos about Dune Part 2. So if you want to keep watching Dune stuff, follow me there. If this stream gets 150 likes, Paul and I will record a video where we play a guessing game where we hide objects in here and we have to pull them out and give clues about what they are and see if the other can guess what it is.
That went better than I thought.
It's like Ned's head, but adult with Shai Hulud, the maker.
Please. Oh, please. Oh, I would do that in a heartbeat. Oh my God. I'll do it for free. Oh my God.
I was going to say, or 10 likes and we'll do it tomorrow.
Actually, make it 100. Let's make it 150 because I need all the help I can get. But good God, this is
it's
this is incredible. No, guys, thank you so much for joining us. Again, the Comic Binge exists. Yeah, of course, man. The Comic Binge exists to promote comic books, and go check out these Dune comic books. They're great. We have tons of great content on here that we review movies, but it's all comic oriented in some ways. But either way, go if you're still watching. Again, 36 people are watching. It's pretty incredible. Thank you, everyone. Go subscribe if you haven't already.
Paid about $75 for this.
That's it.
eBay. But also,
dude, that's a steal.
Someone has one. And I'm not going to say it, but look what someone's packaging it with.
Oh Lord!
For $81.
I'll just say this right
25 bids, dude. 25 bids. Sorry.
No, you're good. I'll just say this: you don't need it.
It's a family show.
You don't need the extra stuff. That's all I gotta say. You don't need it. You don't need it. It works just fine. Works just fine going in and out. That's all I gotta say. I'm sorry. I can't help it. Go to no yawning, Double G. No yawning. Come on. I'm trying to make you laugh here. Anyway, go check out all our other content. Lots of Spider-Man, Batman content on there. Next week, God, what the hell am I doing next week? Even I think next week it's open. I may just be an open, like just me talking about comics and what I've bought them recently. So we'll see what happens there. I don't know, but we got lots of great shows this week. Again, everyone, super appreciate it. Yeah, good. Thank you, Zach. Appreciate you, brother. Always appreciate you out, and you too, Chris. Everyone, super appreciate everyone's nice words. Go subscribe to the Comic Binge. Oh God. KND. Yeah, it's Nice Never Die next week. Okay, Nice Never Die. Grant Morrison's Batman run will be continued next week, I guess. So I thought it wasn't next week, but I'm happy. So Chris isn't here, and this is about comic books. So I'm going to say it right now for everybody: read more comics.